Hey guys, in today's build video I'm gonna share with you my best AR PvP spotter build. So this build is the one I'm using in Dark Zone and the one that I'm mostly using in Conflict, since in Conflict I want to kill as much enemies in a quick and easy manner, since the key to winning a Conflict match is to deplete your enemies lives. So in Conflict you have this little map wherein it's easier for you to spot any enemies. Since I'm using spotter and I have amplified damage with this specific spotter build, it's easier for me to pick on any enemies and melt their armors. So with this build I'm using the technician specialization for the linked laser pointer. So my gun or my main weapon is the FAL. So it's fitted with a rugged mini reflex sight for crit chance, muzzle brake for 5% added crit chance, sturdy extended 7.62 mag for that plus 20 rounds, and the linked laser pointer, which is specifically unlocked by using the technician specialization. So it allows you to pulse any enemies that you point your laser. Okay, so for this build I'm using the FAL since it has a high weapon damage. So it is important to have high weapon damage to compensate or to have a good synergy with your amplified damage, since the amplified damage is dependent on your weapon damage or your base weapon damage. So for this gun, it has assault rifle damage, health damage, damage to target out of cover, and an in-sync talent. So in-sync allows me to have double the damage. So whenever I shoot someone, it raises my skill damage by 15%, and then when I'm using skill, so preferably my shield, it grants me plus 15 weapon damage. And when these two damage bonus is proc, the damage is increased by 2. So my weapon damage will be plus 30% weapon damage. For the secondary, I'm also using the FAL, but this time the talent is set to strain 2. So whenever my shield is broken, I switch to this gun since it allows me to have that 10% critical hit damage for every 0.5 seconds that I'm firing this gun. So it stacks up to 5 times, which is which allows me to have another 50% crit hit damage. Okay, so for the pistol I'm just using the first wave PF45. So it has pistol damage, damage to target out of cover, and the talent set to stream. It has extended pistol mag for that plus 11 rounds, and compact coupled small laser pointer for that plus 10% critical hit chance. Okay, so let's go with the gears. For the gears I'm using the Seska mask. So why the Seska mask? Since it gives me that plus 10% crit hit chance bonus for the gear set. And then it has weapon damage, crit chance, and another mod for crit damage. So in this build it's important to build up as much critical hit chance and critical hit damage to further boost your damage. So you get your damage from your weapon damage, your amplified damage from the spotter, your crit damage, and of course the best in slots, which is the contractor's gloves and the Fox's Sprayer's knee pad. So for the backpack I'm using the Grupo Sombra backpack. So I'm using this to get that plus 15% critical hit damage. So as you can see, I'm building as much crit chance and crit damage. So it's important to build as much as 55%. For me, it's much more better if you have 55% or more, up to 60% crit chance, since 55% to 60% allows you to almost always proc that crit damage, and that crit damage is also a multiplicative bonus damage for you. So it raises your damage output and allows you to quickly dispatch any enemies. So it has weapon damage, crit chance, crit damage, and another mod for crit damage. The talent is set to Vigilance, wherein it increases my weapon damage by 25% as long as I'm not getting damage. So getting damage disables this for 4 seconds. For the Chestpiece, which is the most important piece of this build, I'm using the Fenris Group AB Chestpiece. So this gives me that plus 10% assault rifle damage. So it's important to get this since this build uses AR, and also this build has weapon damage, crit chance, and another mod for crit damage. It's important to get the talent spotter. So why spotter? Because whenever your link laser pointer pulses your enemy, spotter can be proc, since it only requires you to pulse any enemies, and when you pulse your enemies, it amplifies your weapon and skill damage by 15%. So it's important to have this. So this one is the most important talent in this build, since the reason why you can easily melt players with this build is because you have amplified damage together with your Vigilance and in-sync. Okay, so it adds up or stacks up damage from your weapon damage, amplified damage, and your crit damage. So let's go with the gloves. I'm using the best in slot contractor's gloves. So it is set to armor, and then it has damage to armor of 8%. It has crit damage. So the bonus is 10% LMG damage, but I'm not using LMG for this build, so most of the time it's just disregarded. The only thing that is good in this gloves is that you have that plus 8% damage to armor, which is also multiplicative bonus damage. Okay, so it's important to stack up as much multiplicative bonus damage together with your critical damage in this build. Okay, so for the holster, I'm just using an improvised holster. So improvised holster is used in this build since it has an extra mod slot. So it's set to armor, crit damage, crit chance, and another mod for crit damage. So I try to build as much or as high as I can get with my crit damage for this build, since I also require that crit damage to further boost my damage output. So having an improvised holster is important in this build, but you can use other holster. For example, you can use Seska holster, and then your mask can be switched to a Coyote's mask. So I'm just using this build and not the Coyote's mask and then the Seska holster, since I went with and tried to have a stable or a steady amount of crit chance and steady amount of crit damage on any range. So it might be hard at first to craft improvised holster, but for me, I would suggest that you try to craft improvised holster as long as you can, or you have that specific materials. Okay, so for the last piece, for the knee pads, I'm just using the Fox's sprayer. So it gives you that plus 10% rifle damage, but it's also disregarded, since the reason why you'll be wearing this knee pads is that so you can get that plus 8% damage to target out of cover. So it works and combines well with your AR's damage to target out of cover, which is 10%. So you now have 18% damage to target out of cover, which is also multiplicative, and you have that 8% damage to armor. So you have both multiplicative bonus damage together with your critical damage, your amplify, and then your weapon damage, which is boosted by in-sync, and your vigilance. So it has crit damage on the last attribute. Okay, so for the skills, I'm just using scanner pulse. So why scanner pulse? So that I can easily spot or see any enemies who are trying to ambush me, or if I want to ambush someone, I can see where they are positioned. Also, it helps me whenever I can switch to my other FAL, so I just use scanner pulse to proc in sync whenever my shield is broken and I have no chance or time to switch to my other weapons. And then I have the Crusader shield for that extra survivability and also to proc in sync. So as you can see, my build is 3 core reds and 3 core blues. So why this setup? Since I want to have a balanced amount of weapon damage and a balanced amount of survivability. Okay, so let's go with the stats. For the stats, I have 110k weapon damage for my FAL, and it has 44k PvP weapon damage, 54% crit chance, 180% crit damage, so it goes as high as 180%, so it's a steady amount of crit chance and crit damage. If I use Coyote's Mask and then Seska holster, I would get almost the same crit chance, but my crit damage will just be at 168%. It goes to up to plus 25 or plus 10 depending on your distance. So whenever your enemy or the enemy that you are shooting changes distance, so if he gets close, it changes to plus 25% crit damage. If he is far, at least 15 meters, so for example 15 meters, it will proc that 10% crit chance and 10% crit damage bonus. So I'd rather go with a steady amount of crit chance and crit damage. So I have 75% headshot damage, 8% armor damage, 21% health damage, together with that 18% damage to target out of cover, which is not listed on the stats page. Okay, for the secondary, it's the same. For the pistol, I have 153k weapon damage, 50k PvP weapon damage, 54% crit chance, 180% crit hit damage, 120% headshot damage. Since this is a pistol, it has a high headshot damage, and 8% armor damage, together with that 18% damage to target out of cover. For the specialization, I have 2.5 million weapon damage, 835k PvP weapon damage, 44% crit chance, 180% crit damage, 95% headshot damage, 8% armor damage, which is disregarded anyway, since you're not gonna be using this in Dark Zone. But in Conflict, you can go with your signature weapon whenever you have that special ammo. Okay, so this is my AR PvP spotter build. So hope this build helps you